This video is part of a series intended to help citizens, members of the media, public officials, or anyone acting on their behalf to better understand Florida's exceedingly broad Public Records Act. These videos may be used by anyone and may be freely distributed without charge. I am not an attorney. I am not qualified, nor am I authorized to give legal advice to the public, so I don't. Any information provided by me in person, on video, or through fogwatch.org is readily available from the Florida First Amendment Foundation and the Florida Attorney General's Office of Open Government, as well as many other sources online. Article 1, Section 24 of the Florida Constitution establishes a constitutional right of access to any public record made or received in connection with the official business of any public body, officer, or employee of the state, or any persons acting on their behalf, except those records exempted pursuant to Article 1, Section 24 of the Florida Constitution, or specifically made confidential by the Constitution. Our Constitution requires that public officials must conduct public business in the open and that public records must be made available to all members of the public. Section 119.011, Parent 12 of the Florida Statutes defines public records as documents, papers, letters, maps, books, tapes, photographs, films, sound recordings, data processing software, or other material, regardless of physical form, characteristics, or means of transmission, made or received pursuant to law or ordinance, or in connection with the transaction of official business by any agency. Because these definitions are based upon the Florida Constitution and the Florida statutes, records are limited to those created or received by state or local agencies. The Freedom of Information Act covers federal agencies, which is beyond the scope of this video. The Florida Supreme Court has further elaborated. To give content to the public records law, which is consistent with the most common understanding of the term record, we hold that a public record, for purposes of Section 119.011, Parent 12, is any material prepared in connection with official agency business which is intended to perpetuate, communicate, or formalize knowledge. The form of the record is irrelevant. That fact is often a source of confusion for both requesters and custodians. Instead of thinking about what the record is, for example, an email, a photograph, or a map, consider what the record does. Does the record communicate, perpetuate, or formalize knowledge? Public records fall into one of three categories: non-exempt, exempt, and exempt and confidential. Non-exempt includes any public record that has not been specifically and narrowly exempted by the Florida legislature. All public records are non-exempt unless the legislature has made them otherwise. Exempt includes records that the legislature has designated in such a way that public agencies do not have to make them available to the public. In most cases, the agency could disclose the records, but they don't have to. Exempt and confidential would include records such as the home phone numbers of law enforcement officers, autopsy photos, the names and addresses of the victims of sexual crimes. These records may not be released by a public agency except to those persons the legislature has specifically permitted to have access. There are about 1,000 exemptions in Florida. Everything else is fair game. If you are unsure as to whether a public record is non-exempt, you can make a public records request to the agency and wait for them to deny access. In such an instance, they are required to cite the specific statutory exemption and, upon request, to explain their rationale for applying the exemption to the records in question. Alternatively, you can do your own research to make the determination in advance. This is the approach that I generally take. In most cases, it's pretty simple. There are numerous online resources to help with this, such as the Florida Attorney General Sunshine Manual, the First Amendment Foundation, and AGOs. As you know, I am not an attorney, so I can't give you legal advice. I have, however, made thousands of public records requests, and I'd be happy to chat with you about the records you might consider gaining access to. The process is painless and actually kind of fun. It's a lot like a treasure hunt. For public officials and those acting on their behalf, the same offer applies. I can't give you legal advice, but I'd be delighted to brainstorm with you about how you can better serve the public and how to avoid common public records pitfalls. As always, my services are offered free of cost. Remember, only the legislature can exempt records from disclosure. There are many examples of public records. Here are just a few: drafts and notes, electronic and computer records, electronic databases and files, emails, Facebook and other social media, text messages, pen messages, terminal transmissions, personnel records, internal affairs summaries and investigative records, photographs, videos, maps, drawings, signs. Of course, there are many more examples of what constitutes a public record. When you consider the exceedingly broad definitions used in the Public Records Act and by the courts, you may begin to see just how much information is available to folks who are willing to ask for it. When you start digging, allow your imagination to be your guide.